Welcome back to Superbly Said, advanced English vocabulary and phrases. You can go to SpeakDuo.com to meet new people from around the world who are practicing English on video calls to become more confident with their speaking abilities. So in today's critique, we are looking at a SpeakDuo lesson deck for an advanced English speaking workshop titled The End of the Dumb Dad Trope, which features vocabulary exercises, breakout session prompts, and examples of AI language feedback. Viewed through the lens of angle and originality, reading this felt a bit like buying a ticket for an intriguing sci-fi movie, only to sit down and realize the film is actually a generic romantic comedy.
Right, the title of the lesson promises a specific cultural and thematic exploration that the actual vocabulary exercises completely fail to deliver.
Yeah, you see the marquee, you get excited for the world building, and then you're, handed a script that completely abandons the premise.
Exactly. I mean, the dumb dad hook is so strong for advanced language learners to debate, which makes its absence in the actual lesson just incredibly glaring.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for the lesson creator regarding that disconnect, right? The weakness you're pointing out is that the title implies this rich discussion on media representation or gender roles, but the 8 idioms and icebreaker questions focus on completely generic topics.
Mundane topics like washing dirty clothes or buying a gold watch.
Right, but doesn't that approach guarantee every single student in the room has a universal, accessible experience to talk about? I mean, broad versatility is the ultimate goal of a vocabulary exercise, isn't it?
Versatility in the real world is the goal, yes, but relying on generic practice environments actually harms memory retention and cognitive engagement for adult learners. The intriguing premise is completely abandoned after the title slide, leaving the advanced learner disconnected from the promised topic.
So the vocabulary just exists in a pedagogical vacuum.
Exactly. When you force a learner to jump from washing clothes to buying a watch to cooking dinner, you're forcing them to context switch every 2 minutes.
Oh, I see. They have to spend mental energy visualizing entirely different scenarios instead of just focusing on the language.
Right. Memory and adult language acquisition is highly contextual. The suggestion here is to realign the vocabulary examples and practice questions to actively serve the dumb dad theme, creating a cohesive narrative thread that pulls the learner through the entire lesson.
Okay, let's look at concrete examples of how an instructional designer can actually implement this. Take the phrase, "to be clueless," for instance. The prompt in the deck asks about laundry.
Which is totally unrelated to the theme.
Right. So change the practice prompt to, in what ways do classic sitcoms portray fathers as being clueless about household dynamics?
That is so much better. It bridges the gap perfectly and forces them into high-level discourse. And since these are advanced learners, we should really highlight the nuances of these phrases. Like, compare to be clueless with something like to be misinformed.
Oh, that's a great distinction. To be misinformed implies you were given the wrong data. Like if you tell your boss, "I was misinformed about the project deadline."
Right, but to be clueless means you possess absolutely no practical knowledge about the situation at all. Like responding to an IELTS Part 2 question about a difficult new job. You might say, "During my first week, I was completely clueless about how the software worked."
Yeah, exactly. Let's look at another one. Instead of asking what weird song you'd play to hype yourself up, the prompt could be, how might modern media hype up a father figure rather than defaulting to the dumb dad stereotype?
Which, again, respects the learner's intellect. And looking at the nuance of to hype someone up, we should compare it to just to encourage.
Right, encouraging is fairly gentle. My colleague encouraged me to share my idea in the meeting.
But to hype someone up has this really energetic, enthusiastic element. It's about building confidence aggressively. Like, before my big sales pitch, my manager really hyped me up, so I felt invincible.
I love that. And what about a phrase like, to hang in the balance? Instead of talking about what to eat for lunch, you elevate it. Do you think the traditional representation of fatherhood hangs in the balance as society changes?
Yes, that is a significantly heavier, more satisfying question, and contrasts to hang in the balance with to be pending.
Oh, yeah. The contract approval is pending is just a dry, factual status.
But saying the future of the company hangs in the balance creates a remarkably uncertain and precarious state. It has dramatic tension.
Right, like an IELTS answer. While I waited for my exam results, my entire future seemed to hang in the balance. Okay, so assuming the creator applies these thematic changes, we still have to address the chronological flow of the user experience.
Yes, the structure and flow. The upfront placement of highly specific, personalized AI pronunciation and grammar feedback disrupts the natural pedagogical progression of a group workshop.
Now, I want to push back a little here. Is there a risk that placing personalized error corrections at the very beginning of the deck sets a negative tone before they even speak? Because I see this in EdTech all the time.
It absolutely sets a negative tone. The weakness here is that the lesson immediately presents granular corrections, like how to pronounce the word yeah, or how to fix disorganized grammar, before any communicative context is introduced.
But if I'm paying for an AI language tool, don't I want immediate feedback? Why hide it?
Because it is deeply jarring for a group setting. It creates an intimidating, corrective start rather than a welcoming conversational one. It spikes their anxiety, which raises their affective filter.
Oh, right, the affective filter. When that goes up, it physically blocks the brain's ability to spontaneously retrieve language.
Exactly. You're shifting their brain from a fluid communication mode into a rigid, hypervigilant editing mode before they even say hello to their partner.
That totally sabotages the primary goal of a speaking workshop, which is verbal fluency. So the suggestion is to relocate the AI feedback examples to the end of the lesson as a demonstrative tool, or integrate them seamlessly into a common pitfalls review section after the active speaking exercises are completed.
Yes, let them speak first, let them use the idioms, struggle a bit, and then they'll be psychologically primed to accept correction.
For a concrete example, move the slide about pronouncing yeah to a closing debrief section titled Post-Session AI Insights.
Or use the grammar correction slide as a specific teaser after Breakout Room 4. Show the learners the exact type of analysis they will unlock if they subscribe to SpeakDuo Pro after the session.
Right, you're selling the cure after they've actually felt the symptom. It honors their psychological safety and the platform's business goals. Okay, so moving from structural flow to completeness and focus. This brings us to the actual vocabulary content.
Yes, the selection of vocabulary lacks critical contextual nuance regarding professional versus casual register, which is essential for advanced language acquisition.
I mean, the material groups highly informal slang like to screw something up alongside really neutral phrases. If this is for intermediate and advanced learners, aren't we missing a critical layer of context? Is there a danger they'll go into work tomorrow and tell their boss they screwed something up?
That is exactly the weakness. Without providing explicit guidance on appropriate usage, an advanced learner might mistakenly use highly informal language in a strict professional setting.
Leading to some really awkward or inappropriate interactions.
Right, because if you make a grammatical error, people forgive you. If you make a pragmatic error, like using casual slang with an angry client, people think you're rude or unprofessional.
So the suggestion is to introduce a register rating or a situational context tag for each expression to explicitly guide learners on where and with whom it is appropriate to use these phrases.
Hand them a social map, essentially.
Giving a concrete example, you could add a visual tag, like casual or informal, next to screw something up, along with a brief note advising against using it in formal client meetings or job interviews.
And to show the nuance, compare to screw something up with to make an error.
Right. I made a serious error on the quarterly report, is what you say to the CEO. I really screwed up that report, is what you say to your work buddy at lunch.
Exactly. We also need to demonstrate flexibility for the neutral idioms, like to take on a life of its own. Provide a dual context example for it.
Like one showing its use in a casual setting, the silly family rumor took on a life of its own, and one formal setting. The corporate project expanded beyond its original scope and took on a life of its own.
And contrast that with to escalate, because escalate usually implies something negative, like the customer dispute escalated quickly.
But took on a life of its own just means it suddenly became very large or uncontrollable in an independent way. It's not inherently bad.
Exactly. Let's hit the last few idioms from the deck. How about a stand-up guy?
Very informal register. Contrast it with a reliable professional. If I'm talking to upper management, I'd say, I recommend him. He is a highly reliable professional.
But if you're talking to a colleague you've known for years, you say, he's a great hire, real stand-up guy.
Right. Then there's to dial something up.
You should compare that to increase. We need to increase our output, is standard business English.
But we need to dial up the intensity on this campaign. Implies a very intentional, strong increase in volume or energy.
And finally, out of your league.
Right. Contrast that with unattainable, like the sales quota for this month is unattainable. It's formal and objective.
Whereas out of your league has that social, almost competitive weight, like an IELTS-speaking answer. I initially thought getting into that university was out of my league, but I applied anyway.
Perfect. Okay, I think it's time to put our listeners to the test and see if they've absorbed these definitions.
Let's do it.
So I'll run through a quick quiz for these 8 idioms. For each phrase, I'll read 3 options, option A, option B, and option C.
And feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
Right. Let's kick it off. What is the best definition for the expression to hang in the balance? Is it option A, to temporarily suspend a highly important business project until an extensive financial review is entirely finished? Option B, to aggressively demand a highly profitable resolution after an incredibly hostile and deeply stressful public debate? Or option C, to be in a remarkably uncertain and precarious state where the final ultimate result remains completely unknown today?
Well, since to hang in the balance is all about that dramatic uncertainty we discussed, the correct answer is option C.
Exactly. Moving to the next one. How is the idiom to take on a life of its own accurately defined? Option A, to suddenly become very large or incredibly important in a completely uncontrollable and highly independent new way. Option B, to permanently adopt an entirely different personality in order to secretly investigate a massive public corporation. Or option C, to miraculously survive a remarkably dangerous and completely terrifying encounter with an aggressive large predator.
We talked about that corporate project growing independently, so the answer is option A.
Spot on. Number 3, if someone is considered to be clueless, what exactly does that mean? Option A, to intentionally ignore deeply important safety instructions during a highly complicated and very dangerous procedure. Option B, to possess absolutely no practical knowledge or fundamental understanding regarding a highly specific given situation. Or option C, to systematically organize a remarkably complicated corporate process into easily manageable and clear subcategories.
Like the sitcom dads who know nothing about household dynamics. It's option B.
Yep, absolutely no practical knowledge. Okay, next up. What does a person mean when they try to hype someone up? Option A, to deliberately provoke an incredibly angry competitor by completely ignoring their highly specific professional rules. Option B, to successfully negotiate a significantly lower financial purchase price for a remarkably expensive commercial property. Or option C, to enthusiastically praise a specific individual in order to successfully make them feel significantly more confident.
That energetic praise from a manager? The answer is option C.
Right. Number 5. Which of the following describes a stand-up guy? Option A, a specifically designated individual who is considered to be genuinely reliable, highly trustworthy, and truly honest. Option B, a highly entertaining professional comedian who continuously performs perfectly during an incredibly stressful evening. Or option C, a completely unexpected financial supervisor directly resulting from an intensely irresponsible overseas new investment.
It has nothing to do with comedy, right? A stand-up guy is genuinely reliable. So option A.
Correct. Okay, what occurs when a person manages to screw something up? Option A, to forcefully permanently attach 2 completely incompatible metal materials using a remarkably strong chemical agent. Or option B, to completely ruin a previously stable situation or accidentally make a remarkably careless and highly severe mistake. Or option C, to efficiently completely utilize a remarkably great initial idea to make much further progress on an ongoing project.
That would be option B, making a careless or severe mistake. Just remember the register tag and don't say it to your clients.
Exactly. All right, almost done. What does it mean if you need to dial something up? Option A, To correctly predict the highly uncertain outcome of an upcoming global political event using advanced analytics tools. Option B, to securely contain highly volatile chemical substances inside a remarkably fortified underground regional laboratory. Or option C, to intentionally and very strongly increase the overall intensity, total volume, or general level of a specific thing.
To intentionally increase the intensity. Option C.
Right on. And the final question, what happens when an object or a goal is out of your league? Option A, describing something that is simply far too expensive, overly difficult, or incredibly attractive for you to acquire. Option B, describing an incredibly intricate physical procedure required to successfully assemble highly advanced technical units. Or option C, describing a remarkably sudden and entirely unexpected physical collapse of a highly complex structure.
It's option A, describing something that feels far too difficult or unattainable for you to acquire.
Excellent. Well, that wraps up the quiz. Let's briefly recap the 3 main takeaways from our critique today for the listeners.
Sure. First, you have to align the practice questions with the overarching dumb dad theme to maintain cognitive momentum for the learners.
Right. And second, restructure the presentation flow to feature the AI feedback at the end. You really have to protect that affective filter so they aren't afraid to speak.
Absolutely. And finally, add register context and situational tags to the vocabulary definitions so that advanced learners understand the pragmatic social weight of what they're saying.
Yeah, we invite the creator to implement these suggestions and submit their revised work back to the show for further critique.
It really is a strong core idea, and the idioms chosen are incredibly valuable for native-level fluency.
They really are. Until next time, let's hope your next lesson deck avoids the trap of the generic rom-com and delivers the gripping, thought-provoking feature film your audience actually bought a ticket for.